It was important for me that the gallery was truly transformed into some form of cave. I'm Marguerite Humeau, and this is my show Scintille at White Cube, New York. The title Scintille refers actually to the feeling of looking at a dark sky, and maybe at first you don't see any of the stars, but then maybe when you start to really focus, you start to see these really tiny lights that are sparkling in the dark. So it's the tiniest spark of light that can ever exist, and it's really that moment when darkness becomes potential. About a year ago, I spent some time in West Papua, and I visited a cave. I didn't know what I would find there, but I was entering the darkness. I started to swim through the mud, and there were lots and lots of different tunnels. And suddenly I came across this gigantic cathedral where there were stalagmites and stalactites of all forms, all colors, all forms of structures. And also there were thousands of blinking red eyes, which I understood was a gigantic maternity colony of bats. I was there, and as they were flying in and out these immense tunnels, I understood that I was in this sort of gigantic soft brain. I also worked with the ceiling. That is so important in caves. I mean, the whole formations in caves are born from the ceiling, where the water comes from and is dropping and creates these monuments. Downstairs, the sculptures are very vertical, so we're facing these vertical monuments that have been built one droplet at a time. And then upstairs, the works are perched on the walls, so they seem to all exist on the walls of this cave. And in the center, there are stools where humans can sit or rest, and in a way, they're like very abstract stalagmites. This work is called Stillenary, and it's about the paradox of creating movement through perfect stillness. It's about the forces that with time can carve chambers from solid rocks, can create monuments that are not created by force, but that are created with time and perseverance. It grew in a software where layers were added on top of each other organically. It grew by itself, and this was replicated in the production process also, where we added layers and layers of different minerals and different materials so that the sculpture starts to come to life. For this piece, I was thinking of a stream of water that seems to be still in movement. Here I treated it like almost like a watercolor. It was painted by hand, and you can see there are imperfections, there are stains, and so it feels like a watercolor in movement. This work is called The Provider Beyond Bloodlines, and it's really about this radical generosity to feed the hungry, regardless of origins. It was inspired by a real behavior that bats have when they're in the maternity colony. You will have some bats that are feeding some other bats' pups, not necessarily their own child. For me, this piece is also about the dissolution of the self into the common, so when your body becomes a common, so it becomes almost like a part of a public service. The bat colony has been cast in glass. I was interested in cast glass because it can be very ambiguous. You can see in some areas it can look almost like stone, it has almost like geological layers. So it could almost be like alabaster. And at the same time, in some other areas, it can be really translucent. So you can almost see through these bodies. It makes them feel quite vulnerable. For me, the show is an emotional landscape, and I'm hoping that in maybe times that can feel a little dark or a bit uncertain, where maybe some anxiety is rising at times, and I hope that each of these embodiments can show us that in the dark there are also emerging things that have a lot of potential.